You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight on episode 180, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what's been going down over the past week, both in Overwatch and Overwatch Esports. We'll break down the 2019 Overwatch League Grand Finals between the Vancouver Titans and the San Francisco Shock. And of course, we will do our 2019 roundup as we look back at all of the good, the bad, and the ugly moments from Season 2 of the league. But before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show. And of course, thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Ed. And Ed, Season 2 has come and gone. We have entered the Dark Ages until, next week, when we have the Gauntlet. And then, we got, like, a couple more weeks, and, we got BlizzCon, we got the World Cup, and then nothing. Just flat out, like, 3 months-ish of, waiting with bated breath until the return of the Overwatch League. But how has the past week been treating you, my friend?
It's been good. I am going to start this off by saying I was wrong. I love Sigma. I've been playing so much Sigma lately. Like, once I've gotten Sigma's abilities down, like, what does what, like, mainly the shield. Like, once I got those mechanics down, Sigma's so much fun. So I've actually been playing a lot of Overwatch lately. So that Destiny 2 Shadowkeep expansion came out, so I've been playing a bunch of that.
Not to be confused with Shadow Fame Keep.
Yes. Well, classic. So I've been playing a lot of that. It's fall in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
It's very weird weather right now. Like, we're talking about this. It was 82 like 3 days ago, and then it's 54 today. So that kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But no, yeah, just getting in. We're officially in BlizzCon month. Like, we leave within a month for Anaheim, and I couldn't be more excited. So I don't know, how's your week been?
Well, the countdown is on. I mean, we leave in 26 days for BlizzCon. It's been a pretty good week. I've been kind of quiet. Big week for wrestling, of course. We got the AEW Dynamite premiere on TNT on Wednesday. We have Fox having SmackDown tonight for the premiere, which I'm gonna miss because I'm gonna go see the Joker later tonight.
No, you're gonna go see Joker, not the Joker. They were very big sticklers on not calling it the Joker.
Well, when I'm saying, like, when I'm going to see the Joker movie, like, I have to phrase it like that. I'm not going to say I'm going to see Joker movie, because that makes no sense whatsoever.
Warner Brothers
That's grammatically incorrect.
Warner Brothers is already writing a cease and desist against you.
That's nice. They can come at me. Considering that is completely detached from DCEU, I'm still going to compare it to all of the other DC movies, and I'm expecting it to be probably better than all of the others because the track record for DCEU is not that great to begin with. But it's been a good week. I rushed to get the Bastion Lego skin. Turns out, like, it did not actually end when we thought it would. It actually ended on November 1st. Instead of the Monday, like it usually does, so I guess I didn't need to rush as much, but, we had a good time with that. We also found out that I cannot play Sigma to save my life. But a lot of that...
big negative.
A lot of that just boils down to the fact that I only play him in Mystery Heroes, so for some reason, they just kept giving me other heroes. So I didn't really get to practice. You know what it is, Ed? I have to go back and actually change the quality of life changes that they did with Sigma when it comes to his shield. I need to go back, toggle those on, and maybe maybe I'll fare better rather than being like, oh yeah, I have this shield ability.
Yeah, right. And
But
and for all you other tank players out there, if somebody's playing Sigma, it's not a main tank. That's not like, oh, we have a shield tank. I'm gonna play Zarya. That is not how it works.
yeah, I think the issue I was having is because I don't play him. I kept mixing up the keybinds between his two abilities, and that was something that was throwing me off. So I'll probably remap that just to get used to it. But let's go ahead and talk about what's been going down in Overwatch. So for starters, we had the voice actor for Sombra, Carolina Ravassa, doing some charity work. So she ended up raising $10,000 for the Trinity School over in Colombia. And, because of this, she made a little bit of a wager, based on how much she would raise. So she's getting a little bit of a haircut that she posted over on her YouTube channel, along with another voice actor from the Overwatch scene. Someone that, we're really, not unfamiliar with in regards to, like, these two being paired together, but she was with Anjali Bhimani, who is the voice actor for Symmetra. So, she kind of got, like, that side shave on her head to kind of, like, channel her inner Sombra, and, it's not too much of a surprise. Like, we've seen Carolina actually cosplay Sombra in the past, so, maybe she'll bring that back for BlizzCon. Who knows? But I do know that, the charity is still active right now, so if anyone is interested in donating, we'll have a link to that in the show notes. But I always love seeing just how much interaction we still see, even to this day, between the voice actors, whether, it's just, hanging out at, like, the Comic-Cons together, because they do a lot of stuff together, pairing, like, 2 to 4 of them at a time, or just seeing them continue to do work over on different social media, including this one.
Yeah, it's the only game I really know of, outside maybe a little bit with WoW, where the voice actors are insanely popular with the fan base. You get certain games where the voice actors are famous, but not because of the voice acting they do. Like in Destiny, they had Nathan Fillion and Peter Dinklage was one in Destiny 1, like voice actors. Like they're famous outside of the game. These people are famous with the Overwatch community because of the voices they do in game. And like you said, they always do stuff together. I am shocked they did not bring the Lucio voice actor out on stage at the grand finals when Zed was there. But it's nice to see this. It's good for a good charity. She's missing the purple stripes in her hair, but I have a feeling that's going to be there for BlizzCon.
Could be. And, speaking of Zed, something that was interesting that happened during his performances, we kind of got, like, a peek of a Widowmaker skin. Now, we don't know whether or not this is actually going to make its way into the game, but it was like a pink and blue skin. It had the Zed name and logo on the gun. And, it'll be interesting to see whether or not this is something that was just made specifically for the Grand Finals, or if this is something like maybe they would have just given to him for performing there. But I think in regards to Zed as a whole, yes, the concert 100 times better than what we saw last year. But the thing that really had me reeling was when they were doing the side-by-side comparison with the stats between Zed and Lucio. And one of them was in regards to albums released, because Zed only has 2 albums. Lucio is at 1, and Zed just makes a comment of, he's gotta be careful on that one, because he could catch up.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was definitely better. I don't think the Zed Widowmaker is going to be in game. Just for the simple fact of it would have already been in the game or announced. Like they missed their window of where unless Zed is also going to be performing at BlizzCon, I don't know, because they still haven't announced who's going to be performing.
Or how many.
But they missed their opportunity. I think it was just a cool way to introduce Zed, him being a Widowmaker. Now they may have given him the skin for his own personal account, but yeah, I don't see that being in the game. Yes, Zed was way better than Mr. Another One, DJ Khaled. I did have a problem with the performance, though. Like, wouldn't be me if I didn't complain a little. And it was not with the music at all. It's the order that they did the music. So I know he released a new song like a day or two before this.
Right.
I'd say over 90% of the people never heard that song before. And I get when you perform a concert, you sprinkle in new music to get people. You don't close a show with it. Like, and it's the most non-Zed song I've ever heard. It's like he's on the drums performing. Like, end with something to get the crowd riled up that they all know. It's it's why they have encores and stuff like that. To end with a song that nobody's really heard of was just weird to me. Like, it was just kind of like, okay, we got this new song, and then you expect him to play another song, and it's like, coming up next. I'm like, wait, that was it? So, I don't know. That was just odd to me, but a lot of people said that it was the crowd seemed dead.
That's more to do with like how the mics are positioned.
Exactly.
You couldn't really pick up the crowd.
Like, we had Spider from our network. He was there, and he's like, no, the crowd was kind of going insane the entire time. So, yeah, it was pretty good. Definitely better. I liked that they did it at the beginning instead of, like, halftime. So, yeah, good for them. Hopefully they can keep this up. I wish they would have shown the Questlove stuff.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was bummed about, because like I had a Spider on Monday about that, and apparently Questlove, he was doing stuff in between maps, and he was doing more of like game remixes, which is what I'd really wanted in the first place to see, maybe Zed would do, since he has done stuff for like Zelda in the past, but we didn't get that, and we didn't really hear any of that, so it's just the same, like, that just kind of like fell under the radar, and it was just for the live experience. But I can kind of see why it did. I just wish they would have added it, like post game, so you could kind of like go back and catch kind of like the other activities that were going on as more of like a behind the scenes type look. But Zed did post some behind the scenes stuff, and apparently like he was like really the first one in the arena, warming up, before. Even though like right now he's technically on tour, and he went out of his way to do the grand finals.
Yeah, and like the thing is I know with Spider, and you guys were talking about this, like how much they had to pay Zed to do it, or I honestly don't think they probably had to pay him that much. Like, if you think of it, with these kind of things, this is more marketing. I mean, I know this is not on the same level as the Super Bowl, but like there's companies pay the NFL to perform at the Super Bowl, like to have their players perform at the Super Bowl, because you get that much exposure. And with Zed dropping a brand new song 2 days beforehand, and then they get the exposure, they probably paid him, but they probably didn't have to pay him all that much, because they just wanted to get the record label wanted to get exposure for Zed.
As long as he wasn't paid in Blizzard bucks.
They're like, we will give you 400 Blizzard bucks, your own skin, that only you're allowed to have, and you get to play 4 songs.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'll take it.
It's better than the 400 Blizzard bucks spray icon that they're giving the Contenders players, or the Tier 3 players.
Yeah, for the practice season. Like, here you go, guys. Totally worth it. Have at it.
Yep. Go to town. Here's a spray. And you're bankrupt.
Yeah. Well, that's not the only virtual goodies that, you could potentially get your hands on soon, as I know they just announced the BlizzCon virtual ticket and everything you'll be getting in-game. And I have to say, like, the Overwatch stuff this year I'm very happy with. Outside of that, like, obviously I'm not really going to care about, like, what we're going to get in StarCraft or anything like that. But just a quick roundup for World of Warcraft. If you have the virtual ticket, or if you're going to BlizzCon, you'll have the digital code in your mail at this point. So for Warcraft, you get a Finduin pet, or Gilvanis, so the Murloc pet, dependent on race. They have a Wendigo Woolies Transmog, complete with butt flap, which is an important thing for any convert to raid member, because it's always a big discussion when it comes to onesies. In Overwatch, we have 2 new legendary skins commemorating, 25 years of Azeroth. So, we got the Illidan Genji skin, so, I already mentioned this, I already knew Illidan was a weeb. But, we got another one for Symmetra, which I'm pretty excited about. So, what were your thoughts on the skins that we're getting?
I mean, they're cool skins. I'm a little surprised by them because I mean, yes, Blizzard, it's the same company, but it's not like Hearthstone or Heroes of the Storm where you bring in all this stuff. A lot of people probably may not even know who the hell Tyrande and and them are, and it's just like it's a blank to them.
Yeah, it's a little bit different than like the Warcraft themed skins that we saw
Yes.
along with the Blizzard World release. This is more just a straight model from Warcraft over to Overwatch at this point.
Yeah, like who the hell is Illidan? Like who's Tyrande? Like I know who they are, and I'd say a large portion do, but there will be a portion of the player base that's like no idea what this is. So that surprised me. Also, if Genji does not get a voice line saying you are not prepared, I will never use Illidan skin.
Because the spray just is not enough.
Spray is not the same. You need the voice line. You are not prepared. Tyrande, whatever. I mean, it's Tyrande. She's not that cool. Maybe. Okay, this is evil. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna have Tyrande and then the wooden, like the forest Orisa skin.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could have Tyrande in front, Orisa in back, and then you can have Ashe throw in the dynamite, and it can look like, there's a tree on fire behind Tyrande.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in World of Warcraft.
Yeah. The only problem with that is there's no Sylvanas in this case.
Yeah, true. Who would, if they were to do Sylvanas, who would it be?
Well,
Mortimer?
I mean, you already name dropped Ashe. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if that would really work.
Yeah. I don't know, but they're really cool skins. I will say that. But voice line needs to come along with this.
Mm-hmm. So outside of that, of course, they're doing a Golden Legendary for Hearthstone, which is going to be available in-game after BlizzCon. The BlizzCon 2019 card back. StarCraft is doing Brood War era skins for some of the units, like the Battlecruiser, Ultralisk, and the Carrier. Same with the portraits, and then the classic game, Heroes of the Storm. I gotta throw that in there. They get a Celestial Crab mount, which is actually pretty cool. I like that. And then a BlizzCon 2019 spray and portrait. But all in all, I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of Illidans running around here.
Yes. It is also important to note for those Diablo fans out there that it is, they said they're going to get wings, but they're not releasing what else you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would ruin a surprise. Cough Diablo 4 is my guess.
Potentially.
Yes, or
congrats, Diablo Immortal is out.
Everyone, you get a phone preloaded with Diablo Immortals.
Mm-hmm. God, that would be the real kicker if that's what it is.
Like they partner with T-Mobile,
mm-hmm.
and you get a phone through T-Mobile, and it has Diablo's Immortal on it. There we go. The real T-Mobile MVP.
Yeah, except the game is gonna drain the battery so quickly that you're gonna have to use the fast charging stations at BlizzCon, also sponsored by T-Mobile.
Yeah, and you can't send texts or have any other apps on it. Mm-hmm. It's just gonna be the exact size of the game.
Perfect.
So,
All right, I'm glad we pieced that together. So now you guys can all be spoiled come November 1st and 2nd. So, outside of that, of course, we got quite a bit going on in regards to the Overwatch League over the past week. We got some important dates coming up that have passed or some that are coming up. But for starters, a little bit of a follow-up in regards to the Shanghai Dragons. So I know last week you and I were talking about some of the recent coach departures. Let's say to release their head coach as well as one of their assistant coaches. And they've actually announced their replacement, who's going to be filling in for them. And they've turned to Moon, who is a former coach of the LA Valiant, most recently Team CC. I'm trying to think, did we talk about this last week? It's throwing me off because it's a Friday.
I think we did.
Did we? Okay, we'll just skip ahead. So, the Dragons, they have a new head coach. There's been a lot of coaching changes over the past week. For starters, like, the Justice completely went away with all of their coaches. So they're starting with a clean slate after they finish in 17th place. So gone our head coach, Wizard Hyun. Gone our assistant coaches, Avala, MKL, and Shrugger. Now, this is part of, the first sign-in window in regards to the Overwatch League, so teams right now are exercising team options on existing players currently under contract. This also goes with coaches and streamers as well. So basically, right now, teams are able to negotiate contract extensions. They could look to sign and promote players on their respective academy teams. And then the next big date, which is coming up next week on Monday, on October 7th, teams that have completed, exercising existing contract options can submit free agent player contracts for league approval, and then player trades open up. Now, today we did get, what's the current contract status of all of the players in the league. We'll digest that next Wednesday, because, the free agency will open up at that point, but there are some pretty notable names on there that are free agents, some of which might be a little bit more surprising than others, but here we have the Justice, who are basically starting anew. And, this is one of the few teams who, went from, an 0-7 stage to having a pretty big turnaround. Granted, it took towards the end of the season with the introduction of 2-2-2. So right now, you have the Justice, who are looking ahead to the 2020 season, and this is one of the teams that are hosting 5 homestand events throughout the year across the DC area. But, it's curious. So they've kind of, gone away with their Korean coaches, so are you expecting them to do the same in regards to their roster come Season 3?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the majority of that team's gone. Corey obviously not, but with Washington, I mean, they just basically were like, screw, we need to do something. We need to get rid of everyone. The Wizard Young approach that they thought was going to work for them backfired horribly. With Jonathan, and bringing in Sam, who did perform better, but he was, whatever.
I mean, Stage 4 was kind of an anomaly, because, Jonas had so many barriers to hide behind that
and they couldn't feed on Orisa. It's very hard to feed on Orisa. It takes a special skill set.
Yeah, just pressing W and nothing else.
But, I mean, honestly, outside Corey, is there really anyone on that team worth keeping?
The DPS
Stratus,
line
maybe?
in itself, I think, is the safest bet. Everything else is kind of just they could probably fare better without at this point.
Yeah, and I think maybe Guido. Guido did fine enough. I mean, we're also talking about this, and we kind of know a little bit about what's going on with the Washington Justice, and it's whatever. The tank line's gone. That's a given, because they had Lullish and Elbow signed, and they're bringing them in for Season 3. So they have their tank line. Like you said, they probably have their DPS lineup in Stratus and Corey. Maybe pick up somebody else. but they don't. They're going to need all new healers. So that's where speculation comes in, which I'm sure we will be talking a lot about next Wednesday.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, next week is going to be very interesting with the free agent market opening up. Plus, we got the gauntlet, so a lot of teams are going to be, well, all the teams are sending scouts to take a look at some of the top, contenders teams from across the globe, which I'm greatly looking forward to. Should be a good time. So outside of the Justice, we also had coaching changes for both the LA Gladiators and the London Spitfire. So the LA Gladiators head coach DP had his contract expired earlier in the week, and he's officially become a free agent after not re-signing with the Gladiators. So, this is someone who was the head coach for the Gladiators for Season 1 and Season 2, and with those 2 seasons, the Gladiators went 42-26. Pretty respectable. They, playoff record aside, not the greatest. They had a 2-4 run in the postseason. Haven't won in the stage playoffs, unfortunately, because they're 0-3 on that front. But this is a team that has finished in the top 6 in both seasons, so very consistent performance-wise, which is always good to see. So outside of that, London Spitfire also parted ways with the J-Phil, who was also with the Spitfire since their inception and was the only coach to be tenured for both seasons for their entirety. Because there's been a lot of changes when it comes to London, both in the 2018 season and the 2019 season. So, looking at the Spitfire, kind of an up-and-down team despite what their record was. At 40-28 in the regular season. Postseason fared a little bit better at 7-3, and of course, they had the inaugural season championship to their name. Despite how up and down they can be at times. So, and when we're looking at the Spitfire right now, they do only have one coach remaining on that staff. That being Agape, who is one of their assistant coaches. So both teams looking for a new head coach. But I know, there's been a lot of talk with, Sentinels and, Gronky, Sports Entertainment. So there was a lot of discussion about whether or not a lot of the coaches from the Gladiators would be returning. And, DP is not the only coach from the Gladiators who had an LFT post, even going back to last month. So we're still expecting additional changes on that front. But are there any potential situations or destinations that you could see DP ended up at in regards to a head coach position for those teams that are looking right now?
Houston. I think Houston would be a good opportunity. Now, I don't know if he'll go in as the head coach, but I think he would be a good assistant coach there.
Even after Shouldergate.
Yes, even
which
after
was with
Shouldergate.
Houston.
If they can't get over that, then you know what? None of them deserve to be in the league. Now, you brought up the three letters I hate seeing on Twitter. And soapbox time.
Mm-hmm.
LFT. I despise the fact that these are professional players and professional coaches, and they're like, I'm looking for a team. LFT new team, LFT new team. That is not how you get a professional coaching job, is saying, hey, when's the last time a coach has come up and be like, oh, do you want to know how I got the job? Somebody saw me looking for a team on Twitter and they hired me. No, that's not what happens. You reach out to these organizations. This is very much like what they're doing with these LFTs is they're making it look like not a professional organization. They're making it look like tier 2, tier 3 scene. Players who get dropped from contenders or tier 3 team and they're looking for a new team. No, these are professional people with contracts. They're in a professional organization. They're just going to Twitter to find jobs. No, that's not what you do. You don't see that in any other sport out there, that they're looking for a new team on Twitter first. All of these looking for teams, everyone's finding out that these people are actually looking for teams via Twitter. Like, stop it. It's very unprofessional.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if that changes now that we have official word of who is a free agent.
Yes. And
It
I think
might
that,
differ a bit.
and I think that's one of the reasons that they're releasing some of this stuff. So, like, we've seen players have to specify, like, for instance, Sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
He's like looking for a team. He's like, I didn't get fired or anything or whatnot. Like,
Yeah, still under contract, but seeking trials, things like that.
exactly. No. Now, a lot of this can go away. And I'm not putting all the blame on the players and the coaches. It's the fact that there's no agents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, an agent is the one who usually takes care of this kind of stuff. So maybe they start to get agents, but I don't think they make enough money to have agents. Because agents usually make a percentage of the salary. Well, if they're making $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year, you're not going to want to pay an agent.
Right.
5-10% of that. So, this could all be changed if there's ever a union or something like that. But there are definitely better ways to go out there and do that. And I think the league did a nice step when they did release like their who's under contract still, who's not, team options, so on and so forth. They didn't release dollar amounts, which I'm good with, but they released who's actually under contract.
Right. And who knows, maybe somewhere down the line we actually will see contract amounts. But to have an idea of who's actually available on the market is going to make things a lot easier in regards to like speculation, or just to have a better picture of like who could land in what spots. So we'll definitely deep dive more into that next week, since that information all dropped today. We didn't want to switch things up too much. So of course, we gotta talk about the grand finals before we talk about the 2019 season as a whole. So to start things off, yes, it was the 4-0. Yes, this episode might be shorter than the actual broadcast. Also true. Because the broadcast in itself was not that long. It was like a little bit over 2 hours.
Yep.
Not that long. It's like 1 hour if you just count the maps itself. Not a whole lot going on. We had the Golden Boy Choi walking away with the 2019 Grand Finals MVP, well deserved. And what was interesting about this is, New York, they show that Titans do not do well against Bastion, and the Shocker like, you know what? You know who runs that more than anyone? Oh yeah, us. And then they did it multiple times, so they threw in that Bastion May team composition that saw very little, time in the postseason teamfights, only at 6%. And you have the Shock, who had accounted for about half of those. But the broadcast, as I mentioned, 2 hours, 17 minutes. Not very lengthy. We've seen some of the stage finals, I'm sure, last longer than that. And, you have the Shock, who they continue their run after, 4-0 in the lower brackets, and then they get a 4-0 in the grand final. So they end the season on a 20-map win streak, which is only bested by the other record that they had this season, which came in Stage 2, when they went on that 7-0 clean sweep of the entire stage at 28 straight map wins. But man, it was kind of bittersweet as someone that's followed Runaway for a long time, because this was easily their worst loss in any finals that this roster has been a part of. And, looking back, the one thing that stands out, outside of the Sigmas between the two teams, which I figured was going to be a very big differential, just because Janu had been pretty slow to adapt to the role and didn't have the same impact that we've seen from Choi Hyun-bin. But the map picks in this series really made me scratch my head. So I know last week, you and I were kind of talking about okay, how are these teams doing in the head-to-head? Are there any notable maps in particular where one team is just dominant? And the one that really stood out to us was Kings Row in particular, where we had the Titans basically having a 4-0 lead in the head-to-head on that map alone. And it was, one of the hybrid maps that we've seen the Titans play the most at 13 times this season. And they had 11 wins compared to 2 losses. And then on the other side, you had, the Shock, who were at 8 and 5, with the majority of those losses being to the Titans. And I'm like, okay, for sure, Titans, if they're in, a pick situation for hybrid for map number 2, they're going to choose Kane's Row, right? Nope. They went with Eichenwald, where both teams only have 1 loss. But it was just, you look back at the picks, which were Lijiang Tower, Eichenwald, Anubis, and Gibraltar. Half of those maps you had the Shock undefeated at 9-0 on both Anubis and Gibraltar. And it was just one of those moments where it's like, well, I can understand the mindset of knowing that, if you run this back, chances are you're going to be playing on this map the second time around, and you're going to have to win it anyway. But they were basically just kind of like tipping their hand into the favor of the Shock throughout the series, and it was mind-boggling to me time after time, picking what would be, statistically, the Shock's best map out of the 3 potential picks for each different map type. And it was infuriating at times. I'm like, okay, surely they're not going to go here. I was like, oh great, they did. Okay, so based on this logic, then they're going to choose this map. And then it would go that direction. But it was just one of those moments where it just really makes you question, like, what was the plan? Did they have a set plan on each map type that, maybe they found something in the tapes for them to be able to turn things around? But, the Bastion strat in particular was really something that threw the Titans off. And while they did find an answer, it took them until, like, one of the time banks. And then the next time they tried it on a new map, it worked again. So they could not figure out that puzzle and the DPS swaps from the Shock in this particular series.
No, it was, and I've been thinking about, like, especially the King's Row thing. Like, just to get back to that, is the only thing I can truly think of why they didn't pick it the first time around is that they didn't expect a 4-0. And they wanted to save King's Row for possibly the next map, the next pick they had where they could have picked it. Like, maybe they wanted to save it for later on so they can be like, okay, let's get the weaker maps at the end for us to get a better push. Not the best logic, but it's all I can think about why they wouldn't. Also, I don't think the Titans were prepared for what they actually saw.
Yeah. Just as a note, hybrid in the map order would have been 6th, running it back, basically.
Yeah. And, I mean, Titans probably are like, all right, we basically have gone to map 7 with them every single time. What's stopping us now? Like, we're undefeated in the playoffs. We're not going to get
stopping them.
not going to get 4-0'd. And then they have, Spider put it best in chat. Imagine not being prepared for Bastion.
Mm-hmm.
And they just weren't.
Not just Bastion, but Chandelier Bastion.
Chandelier Bastion, which is possibly the greatest thing I've ever seen in Overwatch League. When he went into the tank mode and just shot himself up onto the chandelier, I'm like, how much practice does that take, and how much balls does it take to attempt it? Because, like, that's the thing, is he doesn't make it on that first try. Failed.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to have just the line of sight that you need because you're not going to have that vantage point that you would on the high ground.
Exactly. Like, who knows if they take that point then? But, like, also, from the Titans' perspective, you're coming out and you're like, where the hell is Bastion? Like, we are being shot at and no one can locate the Bastion. Because the thing is, you're not tuned to be like, where the Bastion is? On the goddamn chandelier.
Mm-hmm.
where there's no one ever. So, thank you for ruining any competitive play in Overwatch that might occur. But the thing is, you know, a lot of people have tried to put a good spin on this. That a lot of these fights were super close. Like it was a lot closer than a 4-0, and I'm like, was it?
I mean, the
Was
both
it
teams
really?
had their clutch moments, but man, just Johnny was positioned in at times and just knowing that he was not going to be able to keep pace. And it was the same with the DPS between the Doomfist on both sides. Regardless of Sinatra only playing in 2 of the 4 maps, you had a Hoxel that was still falling behind in some of the key statistics. But, the biggest thing was you had the Shock who were not having to invest a lot of their ult economy when it came to fights in the neutral. And because of that, they were just constantly ahead of the Titans in regards to the ult economy. And that's a very hard thing to overcome when you have teams that are as good as they are in this case. But there were other moments in this series, like for starters, like to kick things off on Lejeune Tower when we were on Control Center, the Titans opted to kind of like change up who they were going to run in regards to their support. So we see them coming out with Lucio and Brigitte to try to deal with the Doomfist, which we all know how important Moira is in the current meta, how much throughput she has healing wise, not to mention the damage that she provides as well. But Coalescence does so much in this barrier meta. And, with the Brigitte, like, yeah, cool, you can get a stun off, but you just don't have the healing if you're just relying on Lucio. So for that to kind of kick things off, that was just an immediate red flag for me. I was like, okay, what is going on? Because on paper, that's just not going to work to begin with. Apparently they thought that there was going to be something there. There wasn't, and then, it took them all the way up until 93% control on the point in order to, get that initial cap for the Titans. And at that point, you already had the Shock, who were in one-fight territory, to take the round. So, it's things like that, on top of the map picks, that you're just like, okay. Obviously they're going to try something different, but, there's a reason why we're not seeing Brigitte played in these spots. And sure enough, it immediately comes in and bites them in the ass in this situation.
Yeah. Like, one other thing, like, the Baguette, like, mix-up. Okay, I can get it from, like, an initial standpoint. Okay, you go out there, they're not expecting her to be out there. Sinatra comes in, you punish it once, and then it's done. It's kind of like the surprise pick. And then you switch off. But, like, it didn't work. So, sucks to be them. Automatically puts them behind. Every aspect of the Shock versus the Titans, if you go by position, so if you're looking at Haxel versus, let's say, Sinatra, Sue versus, like, Striker, the tanks, supports, the Shock outplayed them on every single level. Like, Smurf played better than Tizzy. Sinatra played way better than Haxel. Striker played better than Sue. Overall, Sue did have, like, awesome moments, but it was like...
There was a lot of good and a lot of ugly moments, though, when it came to his Death Blossoms. Especially Temple of Anubis, when he was, like, on the low ground and everyone was above him. And I saw him, drop the Death Blossom. I'm like... There's no one there, bro. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and so, like, the Shock outperformed them in every role throughout the entire series. Like, as soon as I saw them go up 2-0 after Eichenwald, I was like, this is a 4-0. Like, I knew there was no way that the Titans were coming back because they were playing horrible. And I don't know. I didn't get it. Part of me was just like, bring out Bumper, map 4, and just be like,
Just to try something different.
Screw it, let's try something different. We got to get at least one win out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't do that, And I don't know. It was sloppy by the Titans. You know, the Shock just outperformed them, front, left, and sideways.
Yeah, one of the other things too was, the Rascal and Architect lineup was really confusing them too, especially when Rascal would bring out the Pharah. Now there were a lot of situations in this series, in the two maps that Rascal played on Pharah, where the Titans' answer to that was to just have Twilight on the Ana. But more times than not, Twilight was separated from his team as, the rest of the team were trying to advance. And, trying to 1v2 Ana against the Pharmercy composition, not an easy task. Now, there was a moment when, we saw Twilight hit a couple of shots. He threw the Bionade, it bounced off of the tower. He got the pick onto Rascal, but then, the res was right there from Moth at the time. So, it was like a one and done type thing. So it worked in that moment, but that's just asking way too much from Twilight to deal with the Pharah. So there was just a lot of easy damage getting put out, and really not a whole lot to stop them in the air. And, Rascal had some pretty clutch plays with the barrages late to really secure some of these fights and turn the tides for the Shock in particular. But it was just that level of just assuming that, an Ana was going to be enough to kind of negate what was happening in the skies. And, it just really doesn't work in this current meta. The Pharah was getting a ton of value from Rascal. And, I will say, Rascal has been someone who has been on multiple teams at this point. So for me to see him basically fight his way back and then walk away with the championship knowing that he hasn't really had like a very long tenure in the Overwatch League on any of the teams that he's been on was just so great to see. Because I absolutely love Pharah play in particular, and Rascal's always been kind of like my go-to in regards to who I'm viewing on that specific role.
Yeah, it was that regarding the Ana play. Like, yes, Ana is a soft counter to Pharah. Soft counter, because she can actually shoot. In this meta, Ana's trash. Like, double shield meta, Ana's not good. Just no. Just veto that. And, like, that specific play you were talking about where Twilight was shooting at Pharah, yes, killed the Pharah. Pharah got res. The rest of the team was dying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if your main support really is kind of like, hey, I'm gonna DPS. Like, how many of you have played games out there with a Moira who only damages and doesn't heal?
That's anyone at gold or lower.
Yes, that is exactly what this round was like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that fight, you are down a healer because they're trying to DPS down the Pharah. The rest of the team's just screwed. Like, it was just ugly, sloppy play. And they didn't adapt well. Like, the Titans just did nothing to adapt to this team. And you put it right. The Architect Rascal, like, all that stuff, when they brought them in, you were like, you knew you were getting a different DPS lineup than Reaper Doomfist. Because if they're going that, they'd keep Sinatra and they'd keep Striker.
Right, and it's worth noting, too, that for the Shock, they primarily use Rascal and Architect only on Escort maps, but here they actually ran it on both Escort and Hybrid.
Mm-hmm. So, They played it to perfection. The Titans just were badly coached, underplayed, underperformed, and I can't say many good things about them. And that's sad because I like the Titans. I just can't say really anything good about the team other than the fact that they made it to that game.
Mm-hmm.
They made it to the game, but they didn't show up for it.
Yeah, and like even going back to that Ana Eichenwald play too, like just having a barrier in the sky to like try to at least block some of the rockets coming out would have made Twilight's job a lot easier. But that wasn't the case. But like on the Titans front, I will say when it came to the time baking, in particular on Eichenwald, that front forward offense that they were running actually worked very well. But then we ended up seeing a Rascal and Moth get in behind the team, and that really started to open things up for the Shock to take that map in particular. But of course, Troy Hilbin hits like a monster Gravitic Flux in the clutch, and the follow-up was just there for the Shock to take it. But it's one of those situations where, there were some good moments for the Titans, but there was more bad than good. And while Seo Min-soo had some pretty good Death Blossoms, they did not always happen when they needed to. Others were just out of position and didn't really see any sort of value. Haksel across the board really underperformed in a lot of categories. He was dying a lot. But the later that the series went, I know, on Temple of Anubis, the Titans were playing better around Sinatra's Doomfist. So they were starting to see, how he was engaging, because, the Shock were basically just trying to bait Haksel with the initiations, and then they stopped doing that, so he started to play more defensive, which I was happy to see. So, they adapted well on that front, but it was some of the other stuff where it's just, the Shock really struggled on Anubis on their attack, but they break through in overtime, and then they just snowball and ended up getting, a better time bank because of it. Which, go figure, 2CP were kind of used to seeing that. But, it was a lot of early picks in a lot of these fights for the Shock to secure the maps for them. And, Watchpoint Gibraltar was another case of the Bastion line of sight, the vantage point, just being able to mow people down left, right, and center. And when you have to play the cart, kind of hard to dislodge the Bastion.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Temple of Anubis, in the second attack for San Francisco when they snowballed it, that was just sloppy play from the Titans and super smart play by the Shock, because they shouldn't have, by all accords, they should not have taken. They shouldn't have been able to snowball. They went in with no ults. It was an eco push, really, and they ended up winning it. They shouldn't have been able to do that, but they were. But as far as Gibraltar, the Titans had a lame duck offense. They just did. It's another thing where they just couldn't deal with Pharah. It wasn't so much, Architect on Bastion. It was they couldn't deal with anything in regards to Rascal's Pharah, and they just aren't switching. They were just not switching to counter.
Yeah, the Hanger phase in particular was just breezed right through for the Shock on their attack.
Mm-hmm. It was just overall ugly, and I think the Titans knew that their time was up, and that they were going to lose it, and they just kind of wanted it to be over with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they did try hard. I'm saying that they knew they were going to lose. Everyone knew they were going to lose, and they lost.
It was pretty clear cut after the second map.
Yeah, I mean, they barely made the first checkpoint. They made it there with, I think, 20 seconds left, or was it even overtime when they got to the first checkpoint?
On the Titans attack?
Titans attack.
Yeah, it was under 30 seconds. And Janu was the one that kind of opened it up, getting a few picks.
Yeah, and so it was one of those things where, okay, so they went into, trying to get to point B, and they're already, hella behind. So it was ugly. It was, that last map was just halfway through that map, you're just no, they have zero shot at this.
which was unfortunate because we were wanting to see like another 4-3 between these two teams.
We've never been disappointed when these two have played each other. We were very disappointed with this.
Yeah, this one wasn't as closely contested as opposed to the remainder of the field. So in the end, it was a shock winning the overall season and season series, because this was the tiebreaker between these two teams, as they were tied both, in wins as well as map wins at, 2 wins apiece and 11 maps, 1 on each side. But now it is in favor of the Shock. So hats off to the Shock. Of course, they were shilling the championship swag immediately, which, I'm still not a fan of, like, championship gear. Like I said, there's no, like, variety or, like, changes that they can do from, like, traditional sports, basically.
Yeah. So do you think, like, what country got the Vancouver Titans Grand Final Championship clothing? Because isn't that the big thing, like, the losers, like, they always send them to, like, donate them to charity, and they send them to another country, like, to help, clothe people in need. And so it's like the Buffalo Bills, like, clothed, like, 4 different countries in the 90s because they couldn't win a Super Bowl. But who gets the Vancouver Titans Grand Finals stuff?
I'm gonna say Toontown, because, like, it kind of seemed like they were getting dumped in that acid. Like,
Toontown it is. I have no comeback for that. That was a good one. I will give you that one. Oh, Toontown.
All you can hear is the screams as he's slowly getting lowered.
Oh, that's dark.
And if someone doesn't know what I'm talking about, it's from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. Like, the worst kids cartoon. Like, it is not a kid's movie. Like, that is a movie I should not have been shown when I was a kid. Like, murder, Jessica Rabbit. Let's just go with that right there. Everything about that movie was just dark. Yeah, no. Don't let kids watch that movie.
Yeah, and then like the whole, like, getting like bulldozed over, flattened like a pancake, and then being able to, like, blow yourself up to, like, regain your form. It's like, God, that movie takes me back, but
it's gonna probably be remade in the next 2 to 3 years.
Just because we're talking about it.
Yep. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? The remake. Another one.
Well, in this case, it would be the first remake. We're not quite reaching, like, Invasion of the Body Snatchers level where there's, like, 12 different ones at this point.
Yet.
Not yet. One day. We're gonna take it, one movie at a time. But anyways, let's go ahead and move into our main discussion for tonight, which is basically our Season 2 reflections now that the season is over. So let's talk about what worked, what didn't, and what downright was ugly about the league in Season 2. So, Ed, I don't know if, like, there's a particular one that you want to start with on this front. Should we talk about the bad and then work our way up? What are you feeling?
I say we talk about the bad and work our way up.
Okay, so we'll start with the uglier moments then. So, depending on where you want to put this, I know one of mine that I wrote down was related to the Florida Mayhem. Particularly their performance against the Titans when they got Dragon Bladed 24 times in the series, setting a new record by Hoxel. Now, I will say Mayhem as a whole this year, pretty ugly. This was a team that I don't want to say they finished on, like, a super high note, but it was a note that made you a little bit more hopeful for the future, knowing that we started to see more of their pieces come into play. But this was a team that was very down, kind of like in the dumps for most of the season, and then that performance against the Titans in particular was really one of the most, like, less flattering moments that I can remember in the league this year across the board when it came to just one team absolutely getting dunked on, at least by one player in particular.
That was a good one. That was ugly. That was real ugly. Well, depends.
It was
If
ugly
you're
for
a
the
Titans
man.
fan,
It was
yeah,
fantastic.
If you're a Haxel fan, you're like, that was a highlight of my goddamn
Like
season.
that's what I wanted to see all this time. Like you should just believe
See,
that more.
See, my big ugly is what I actually thought you were gonna go with, and I'm gonna say it now. And this happened before the season even started, and that is no Chicago Overwatch League team. The biggest ugly possible is the fact, and not all right. It doesn't have to be Chicago. There's no Midwestern Overwatch League team.
Mm-hmm.
Like no Chicago, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Kansas City. Nothing to do with any of that. That's the biggest ugly of the entire Overwatch League season.
Mm-hmm.
Mark it on the board.
Yeah, another one for me is the general radio silence in regards to Fantasy Overwatch League, which is another one. Like, we knew going into the first season that this is something that they want to look at. And ever since then, there has been absolutely nothing, no comments from the Overwatch League, no comments from Blizzard, so we don't know if we're ever going to get, like, an official platform from the Overwatch League themselves, but of course, thankfully we do have an awesome community. We have, draft options, we have daily leagues, we have pick'ems, and all of that good stuff, but we don't have an official platform like we're used to seeing from, like, NFL or some of the other major sports leagues, and it's just, for people that cover Fantasy Overwatch League, we want to see more options. We want to, because when all is said and done, when it comes to competition, having competitors brings out the best in both parties. And it's gonna basically, whether they're working with, one of the other contributors or, if they're kind of doing their own thing, it's gonna make those other people that are in that field work that much harder and looking to incorporate things that maybe the Overwatch League wouldn't have thought of and taken it in that sort of direction. So for them to just be like, oh, nothing. Like, no word on, like, really the API issues that we've seen throughout the year. No word on a platform. It's just like, come on, guys. Like, we're waiting here. Give us something.
Yeah. My next one kind of plays into the API issues as a whole. And that is, and this isn't going to be a popular one, production issues.
Okay.
Either production from the websites or from television or Twitch production. A lot of people want to give them a break. Be like, it's been good, but they made mistakes here, they made mistakes there. You're 2 years into this.
Right.
Those mistakes need to be gone. And they were popping up all over the place. And it's some of it is like maybe their camera work or their cutscenes or stuff like that, which is more technical type of stuff, or it's one of the best examples and one of the worst segments of the entire year is when they did the Tracer versus Tracer stuff.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the announcers, like the desk, didn't even realize it had started yet. And like, so he was like, okay, I guess we're in, they're live, and then somebody was already dead. And they're like, what just happened? So like they started the match, hadn't cut over to it, the announcers didn't even know what was going on. It's sloppiness like that.
Mm-hmm.
From that massive of a production. And it wasn't like a on-off thing, it was like a weekly thing. There was always just one thing. It wasn't constant, but there was one thing every week. They need to tighten that shit up because it's only going to be harder next season. Like with all these people like at different venues and stuff like that. So, and I only have one more ugly,
mm-hmm.
and then I'll let you get to it.
I got one more as well.
All right, I'll say mine. Bren in spandex. No one wants to see that.
Yeah, that's
dude.
a pretty good one.
So Bren in spandex, shirtless
Mm-hmm.
in spandex. We don't need to see the bulge, dude.
Right.
Don't need if you're gonna go Widowmaker cosplay, go full Widowmaker cosplay. Get the shirt. How about that? How about the shirt at least even? No, don't wear the Widowmaker leggings and no shirt. Like, and then a jacket.
Mm-hmm.
That weird jacket
like
that
that
always
Russian jacket, basically.
Like, is it a designer woman's Russian jacket? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was an ugly. What's your last ugly?
My other one, and I will preface this as to saying that one of these has actually been fixed very recently, as of today even. So for me, one of the uglier things too is kind of like the unknowns right now. Now, the one that I had to preface was contract statuses, which we now know at this point as of today. So I'll eliminate that one. But there's still like a lot of unknowns when it comes to like what's gonna be happening with the Twitch deal. Obviously they paid $90 million for the Overwatch League. That's probably not gonna happen again with the viewership, regardless of the average minute audience being up like 11 or 12% or whatever it was across the board, which was still a fairly good jump. But like we don't know where that's gonna end up going. Like their Disney deal is done after the season, so we haven't really heard anything on that front. And the other thing too is like we talked a lot about like league transparency, and I don't know if I should put that just because like we don't know if that was ever like a primary driving force with the Overwatch League, but I know it's been something that the community as a whole has been wanting, so I felt like I needed to include it. But, not knowing, like, who has team options coming up at the time was kind of like a big thing, because we didn't really have a good indicator of how much movement we were going to be seeing moving into what would really be, like, one of the bigger free agency markets at the time.
No, I get that. Like, and that's like a sweeping, like, okay, this needs to change type of situations.
Mm-hmm.
And they did fix a little bit of it today. So hopefully we get more transparency, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, now what I would be curious is, like, when it comes to the contract statuses after next year, if that's going to be released on that first sign-in window date, as opposed to, say, a couple of days before the official free agent window opens.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, that would be nice. I don't know. They need to change a lot in regards to that. But yeah, just before the signing window would be really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like right now, looking at how it was, there was like a week differential between the two sign-in windows, for the first one opening and then the free agent window officially opening.
Yeah, and like we just need clarification on, like, they can start signing players on October 7th. Now, can they sign other players, or can they only start on October 7th re-signing their own players? Like, is there that grace period where you have like like some other sports have this, you have an exclusivity window to negotiate contracts with your own players before they're open to the public or to other teams? Is that something that's going on?
Well, like,
or
basically right now they're basically talking to people that are currently under contract with their teams, and then their academy teams. So then on the 7th is when it opens up, basically like completely.
Okay. Should be a crazy week next week. Love it.
Yeah, so there's gonna be it's hard to say like how many announcements we're gonna get. But we're expecting some pretty heavy movement, which we will definitely be talking about here in the upcoming week. But moving into some of the bad things in the 2019 season. This one is probably gonna seem kind of weird, but I'm gonna say it anyway. The decision to switch out the gaming chairs to zip chair. Because there were a lot of players out there who you could just tell had so much discomfort getting used to the new chairs. And, you know, for anyone that doesn't actually own, like, a gaming chair, like, they're not great chairs. for a vast majority of them. So, you know, there was, like, I would say about a month period where we saw players in particular really struggling and just being off-put just because of their discomfort. So I don't know if that's going to be a returning theme for the 2020 season, but for them to, like, randomly just swap it out without, like, really any sort of announcements was just kind of weird.
Yeah, that was weird. I don't know how much it actually played into effect. All I know is DeFran got his own chair with no arms on the chair.
Mm-hmm.
And they labeled it DeFran's chair. I also have a rather odd bad, and that's the Shanghai Dragons winning Stage 3.
Okay.
And not because they won Stage 3. And I've brought this up numerous times, is that when they came out on stage to celebrate, the most vital person in the Shanghai Dragons organization was not on stage.
See, I have...
And that's Gamsu's dog.
I have the Stage 3 win in another thing I'll talk about as part of the good.
Yeah, no. The win was good. The celebration was trash.
Also, this is going to be a good segue. You know what else was trash? Because of this very same reason, Spider's picture with Gamsu. I'm just like, where's the dog?
Yeah,
not there.
It's like, oh, you're the Gamsu. Where's the dog? That's what people care about. They care about the dog. So the fact that they did not bring out the dog, you get a bad on that one. I don't. It's not in the ugly because they did win.
Mm-hmm.
So it got bumped up to the bad. So that's one of my bads. What's your next one?
This should come as a no surprise. I was debating putting this one in the ugly category. But this is about your favorite team, Ed. Your Houston Outlaws. Substitutions with the Outlaws. How do they do it? And why do you admit that you fucked up? Like, I have never seen a team being like, oh yeah, that person wasn't supposed to be in that position, and then just admit it openly on social media. Like, don't just go off telling people that you messed up. Sure, sometimes it worked out for them, but it comes across as so unprofessional at times when I see that happen, and it's just like, don't actually admit it. You don't want people to know that you're messing up in some regards like that. And it didn't just happen one time, it happened multiple times in the season for the Outlaws. But it's more so just the fact that I don't want to say they owned it, it's just the fact that they admitted it in the first place, and that confuses the bejesus out of me.
Okay. Fair enough. Someone had to bring up the Outlaws, and it wasn't me. Okay. Thank you for the tier 1 sub, Trenchfoot. Love it. So my next band is Florida Mayhem higher-ups. Now, this takes a little backstory.
Okay.
Before the season, I forgot exactly who it was who said it. It might have been like the GM or whoever, stating that the Florida Mayhem would not be going to an all-Korean roster.
Mm-hmm.
And they followed that up with an all-Korean roster. So, Pot, meet my black kettle.
Mm-hmm.
How you doing here? That was a bad. Now, was it the right move? Yes. 100% right move. Just stupidity. You're just an idiot. Let's just go with
like, leave the idea open. You know, just be like, yeah, we're not going to be one of those teams, because they're not the only team to kind of just completely 180 the vision of who they're going to have on the team. So I only have one other one.
So, same here.
And this is related to meta. So for me, you know, and you know, like, I will preface this in saying, like, I personally didn't mind 3-3 as much as some other people. I know a lot of people hated the GOATS meta. The bad part about the GOATS meta, to me, was just the clear-cut differential between the big three and the other 17 teams in the league. You know, you had the Titans, you had the Shock, and at times you had the Excelsior as the dominant three teams. And then there was no kind of like middle of the pack. You know, there were teams that looked good one day, terrible the next. A lot of inconsistencies. And for that to basically be the vast majority of the league, this year in particular, it's just like, you hate to see that, because at that point we didn't have, you know, we didn't have the wheel of one team beat another team, and going all the way around in the circle like we did going into that final stage. So for me, like, the meta in itself was okay, but the fall off between the big teams and then literally everyone else was so substantial that it really made it almost not worth watching whenever those three teams would play, because the outcome was pretty much definite.
Okay, that's a good one. I'm not getting into the meta because I was someone who actually enjoyed GOATS. So, or enjoyed watching GOATS. But my last bad is Moon, the coach from the LA Valiant. Not for his coaching, but for his, we're not going to play custom.
Big brain custom.
Because he's
too smart.
He's too smart.
The strats are too big brain.
Someone because they're too smart. Legit the worst excuse for not playing someone in the history of excuses. Like, what does that say about the person that they put in over him? Yeah, we got this super smart guy to play it, but over here we got a fucking idiot. Let's put him in. Like, that is some backwoods Alabama shit right there. Like, so stupid. That was a bad.
Yeah, I agree with you on that front. So on that note, let's talk about some of the good things.
Okay.
And I will say, like, doing the good part was a lot easier than the other two. Because, you know, there's no other tier to differentiate if it was good or great, like there was for bad or just downright ugly. So for starters, let's talk about viewership. So Overwatch League across the season saw an increase of 11% viewership in the key demo, which is ages 18 through 34. Pretty good. Also, you know, the average minute audience across the board was up. Now, you know, Twitch numbers were kind of hit or miss, but, you know, when you factor in the TV, when you factor in replays, VOD viewer, and all of that, there were just so many more ways to watch the Overwatch League this season, which was nice to see. And, you know, a viewership increase that substantial was a good thing, and I really feel like that's going to help sustain the sponsorships coming in for the league moving into the 2020 season.
Yep, the viewership was one of mine, so I won't go too much more into it. But yeah, you hit all the key points. Viewership was awesome. Like, the numbers that have been reported, like, especially for the grand finals, were down over last year's grand finals on the networks, and that's bad because it was on ABC this year and ESPN last year. But we don't know all the numbers. That's the thing. Like, this is the first year that, you know, China has been a part of the viewership. Like it has been like a serious, like with Chinese teams and stuff like that. So overall viewership up. That's a big good. So my good is the success of expansion teams. And I'm not talking just about Vancouver. I'm talking
they
about
were the biggest.
they were. But I'm talking about Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
the Spark, the Charge, the Hunters. And they may not have been like the best teams. I mean, the Spark took fourth, technically, but like the Hunters, it's the fact that they came in and put on entertaining games.
Right.
And they put up, outside of the Justice for stage 1, 2, and 3, like the new expansion teams came in and really put on a show. So the expansion teams are a big, big good, minus the fact that there's no Chicago team.
You're right. My next one revolves around the Shock. Seeing the record stage 2 that they had, having the perfect stage, golden stage, however you want to say it, 28 straight map wins, also secure the stage 2 championship. Now granted, they didn't sweep their way through the playoffs in stage 2. They only dropped like 2 maps, so close enough for me. So to see a team that dominant, not just having like all of the game wins, but to win every single map, absolutely monumental for that team. So like, I don't know if that is ever going to be done again. Same with what the Shock did in the lower bracket. Like, that's not something you're going to see repeated in the Overwatch League.
No, it's probably not something we're going to see repeated. So enjoy it while you can. My next good is Western players. Like, you saw a definite rise in the Western player skill base. I mean, look at our MVP is Sinatraa. Whether you believe he's the actual MVP or not, he is the MVP, and he was worthy of being in the discussion. He was the MVP of stage 1 through 3, and probably the MVP of the playoffs. Arguably the MVP of the playoffs. It's stage 4 that he wasn't the MVP. So you had him, you had Super, you had Moth, you had all these young Nero with the Charge. Like, you're seeing these Western players kind of come up and start to show their skills. It's still dominated by Korean players. Like, that's right. I'm not going to argue that it's not. it's just you're starting to see more Western players kind of rise up and be good. So that was definitely something that was good to see.
Absolutely. The next one I will say is Runaway being Overwatch League level, which I know was a huge meme going into this season. So Runaway comes in as the Vancouver Titans, goes undefeated stage 1, undefeated stage 2, end up winning I think it was 18 or 19 straight games to start things off, which was you can't really think of a better way to start off the year if you're an expansion team. I don't think anyone really expected the Titans to dominate as much as they did, but just knowing that people were making such a big deal about Runaway kind of just being, well, they were only good because all of the other teams in Korea left. There's a lot of talk about that, and to see them coming in and just curb stomping the league early on. Now, granted, it wasn't 4 rows all the time, like Bumper had suggested it would be, but to see them come in and really be this powerhouse team right out of the gate for the first half of the season in the meta, when there was a lot of people who didn't really know that they would play it, since they pretty much were primarily playing Dive at the time, and then they kind of moved into Goats later on. But, for a team that was as practice going in, it really showed in their play at that level, and I was over the moon.
I mean, yeah, couldn't agree more with you on that one, so not going to really dive deep into that. My next one is the Casters.
Okay. I do have a note on this one.
Like the addition of Wolf and Akilos, there, and Uber and Mr. X. Like you can see the development of Uber and Mr. X from season 1 to now. Wolf and Akilos, they got brought in from Korea, and have really shined. Like those are the two best. I think if you talk to anyone who watches a lot of it, those were probably the two best caster teams up there. But like, it's so smooth with them a lot of the times. And you have Monty and stuff, and they're good at filling time and stuff like that, and quips and stuff like that. But like Uber and Mr. X and Wolf and Akilos are very good at analyzing in live time and portraying that. And they did a phenomenal job. Like, I did trash on the production issues. That is different than the play-by-play announcers. So I think the casters did great, and that's one of the big mysteries of next season is what's going on with the casters.
Yeah, like,
or who's going to be where? Are these casters going to get shipped around to different cities every week? What's going on?
I don't know if Wolf and Achilles are going to be back next year. I think they're going to go back to Korea, like, if I'm being honest. And then you also have, like, maybe Mr. X is going to go
to CSGO?
To the Call of Duty.
Oh, Call of Duty.
Semler will probably do CSGO stuff if he moves on from Overwatch League. But on Wolf and Achilles, yes, their addition was absolutely huge. Knowing that here you had a duo who has a lot of synergy together because of all their time in Korea with contenders in Apex. So to have that level of background on a lot of these newer players that were coming in, it added a lot more to the broadcast, knowing that they know the backstory of these teams, they know the journey that they have been on, and it added that extra layer that we would have otherwise been missing or just undersold or underdeveloped on that front. Now, my next one comes to format changes for the 2019 season. I really liked what they did with the postseason this year. The play-in tournament, instead of having a Stage 4 championship, I was fine with. That was some interesting games. Of course, the higher seeds ended up winning there. But double elimination format to me just ran so much better than, one and done. Because, if it was the prior format, we never would have had the Shocks moment, this season. But, I like how everything just kind of played out based on seeding outside of that one particular match. So, like, I don't think you could write the script any better on that front. And I know, there's been discussion about, like, what to do with the finals, whether or not the winners bracket winner at the end would have an advantage or, like, have, like, another set to catch up. I'm fine with it. You don't always have to have having the losers winner win 2 sets in order to, win the championship. You have the option of doing both. I like this way a lot better, and it brought a lot more to the postseason because it added that redemption arc to it when all was said and done. And, Shock, they just... They had one mess up on Rialto, and then they're just like, yeah, we're not gonna give an opening again, and then they just ran through everyone at that point. So I was happy to see the changes, and it shows that the league as a whole is listening. Like, they're not afraid to go out and do something different.
Yeah, no, that was another one of my good ones. So you're stealing all my good ones. The playoffs was way better done this time around. Way better. So keep it up. I wouldn't change anything with the playoffs. So keep it where it's at. I like it. So this is my last good one that I had written down.
Okay.
Well, the one I'm gonna say, not the playoffs. The last one that I have is the trash talk. The trash talk was great this year. Yeah, so you have Dogman, you have Gesture, you have Bumper, and all that stuff, and you're bringing more to light, like uh, the competition, the livelihood, getting the fans involved, the trash talk. The one thing I will say about the trash talk, they need to start doing it before the games, not after, before the games. Don't do the post game and talk shit about the team you just beat. Talk shit about them before you play them, and then dump on them, and then talk trash about them after as well. So the trash talk game, while it was very good, has room for improvement.
It's good, but not great.
If you need tips, message me on Twitter.
He will sell them for $5 a pop.
Yes. So
for every Zener.
Yep. Huzzah. I'll just get like an earpiece and be like, say this. And then end it with like, suck it, EU. Or as Trenchfoot puts it now, suck it, Korea. Because a non-all Korean team won. But yeah, that's all the good ones I have.
Okay, so that leads into my final one. Which is going to play into another meme. And that is that Overwatch League is an anime. Couple of things that happened this season. Obviously, the Dragons, they went from 0-40 to Stage 3 champions. Great turnaround on that front. And all in all, seeing Shendu Dranthera coming in and, being better than half of the league at times was so awesome to see. Same with, the Valiant. Valiant, despite an 0-7 start, were still in a position to make the play-ins in such a shortened season. That was awesome to see. The Atlanta Reign coming in and toppling New York Excelsior back-to-back in the regular season. Things that you just don't expect to see. And then, of course, you also had Washington, who were getting clowned on for 3 stages, and then come the introduction of 2-2-2 in the league, all of a sudden they come out looking like a brand new team, and Corey, just comes alive, essentially, when he was pretty quiet for, the remainder of the season. So, there's a lot of small moments that really stood out on that front, script-wise, where it's just man, you just love to see those moments, because there were a lot of times when, these teams were down and out, but, they were able to bring it back from the clutch of defeat. Now, granted, it didn't result in playoff wins, but, it builds more of a story, and it really helps solidify and give more reason for fandom on their front, which is a huge thing. And, for Atlanta, across the board, in regards to the expansion teams, when it comes to, donations on Twitch and all that, they were, always near the top. So, people can say what they will about the Fran, or, how he was for the league. I was really excited to see him play. Sure, he didn't make it through the season, but Atlanta's fandom across the board was exceptional this year, and I love seeing all of the different fan groups starting to pop up based on each of the teams, which is great to see. It's also expanded into team specific podcasts as well, and I'm excited about what that's going to mean for the future.
Yep, dude. Nailed it on the head. The Atlanta Reign, I just want to say this, the Atlanta Reign and the DeFran thing, it's... No, I don't think anybody expected it to be as big as it actually was. Everyone knew that DeFran would be wildly popular, but to carry Atlanta to be one of the most popular teams throughout the entire league for the entire year, without DeFran on the team for 75% of the season, was insane. So, that's what I'm going to have to say about that.
Yeah, and, just that moment of him coming out immediately on Torbjorn was just, another anime moment in the Overwatch League, which I love to see, because it just tells you right out of the gate, this might be trolling in normal games, but no, I can do this at this level too, and have it work. And sure enough, that was something that they could rely on every time on Control, which you just don't expect to see. So, I love moments like that.
And then drunk Defran on stage.
Yeah. Good times. But with that being said, guys, we are going to close things out for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, again, one of the best things to do is to go leave us a review over on iTunes. We're always looking for ways to improve the show. So any sort of insight you have for us, please let us know. Let us know how we're doing. If you would like to find additional Overwatch-related content, you can check out Overwatch Recall, which is our Overwatch podcast directory. Then every Sunday night, we do the Weekly Recall, which has a listing of all of the podcasts released for Overwatch and Overwatch Esports, all in one spot. So for more info on that, follow Overwatch Recall on Twitter at OWRecall. Now, if you would like to support our network, you can do so a couple of different ways. We do stream pretty regularly on Twitch, so any sort of Twitch Prime subs, which cost you nothing, always great. We saw one of those earlier today. Otherwise, the Tier 1 subs are $4.99. Outside of that, we do have a Patreon available at patreon.com/OWLnetwork. So we have tiers there starting at just $1 a month. So, you too can join the likes of our Master and Above patrons, Blazing Bob, Brendan, Jay-Z, Owl, and Kesha in helping our network grow. So we appreciate any support you guys throw our way, whether it's, Twitch donations, bits, subs, pledges, all that good stuff. We appreciate all the help from you guys. So with that being said, Ed, of course, we have a plethora of ways how our listeners can get a hold of us. So why don't you go ahead and let them know how they can do that?
All right, so you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at hndoverwatch. We do have a website that we post at from time to time on owlnshow.com. So go check that out. We are on YouTube as well at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We are on Discord, where we like to chit-chat, talk trash, all that fun bajazzle at discord.me/OWLNshow. We are streaming presently live on Twitch, so twitch.tv/OWLNshow. We're a Twitch affiliate to help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. We do stream pretty regularly, so we're down to 2 shows now. Overwatch League Network is Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. Then Heroes Never Die. This show normally airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. We're not doing OWL by the numbers because, well, there's no Overwatch League to do fantasy
so
on.
That'll be back come February.
It will be back, yes. And then host streams, when available, run on a flex schedule. So be sure to follow us in Discord on Twitter, and you will be notified when we go live. As Totem said, we are on Patreon at patreon.com/OWLnetwork. So come over there if you want to help the show even further. You can contact me personally on Twitter, and that's at EditorOverwatch, where you can read some of the great drunk Harry Potter tweets from this past weekend.
Nerd!
I had a weekend free, so I decided to get drunk and do the Harry Potter marathon.
Yep.
First off, Dumbledore's a dick. Let's just get that out of the way. Dumbledore is a straight up dick. Harry should have been with Hermione, but they needed to get the Weasleys involved romantically somehow, so they're just like, let's make Harry and Hermione date Weasleys and marry Weasleys and have their Weasley kids, and annoying. I don't know. I might do this fairly often. I might do a Star Wars one coming up too. So be prepared for that. You all love it. And I'll go on Hondo rants. Hondo from Clone Wars and Rebels, the cartoon series, greatest Star Wars character of all time. Don't at me. Or at me. Either or. So, Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I'm also on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR, where you could find me this month, in particular, talking about the 31 Days of Halloween as I watch a horror movie every single night. You can also see what 31 movies I am watching throughout the entirety of the month. But just as a reminder, if you guys are going to BlizzCon, let us know. We'd love to meet up with listeners, all that good stuff. I will say at Con Before the Storm, for the Overwatch podcasters out there, we are going to do a group photo like we did last year. So we'll probably either do that before or after the Overwatch panel on that night. Because I know a lot of people are going to be hanging out regardless at Con Before the Storm, which is presented by Wowhead this year. So not competing parties, but that it will be on Halloween.
And yeah, come out there, say hi to us, and buy me a drink.
Or don't buy me a drink, because I'll have my flask.
Yeah, no, you don't have to buy Totem one. I never said buy Totem a drink, buy us a drink. I said buy me a drink.
Mm-hmm.
So, come up and meet me and be like, hey, Adenar, here's a beer. Nice to meet you. I'm not saying...
Mm-hmm. And if you are buying me a drink, do not buy me beer, because I probably won't drink it.
Yeah, I drink 7 and 7s.
Those are good.
So, 7 and 7.
If you're unsure, just that'll be like the secondary option. So.
Yeah, if you show up with a beer, I'm from Wisconsin. I'll drink it.
That's your blood, basically.
Yeah, there's a reason there's 10 of the 15 drunkest cities in America are in Wisconsin.
Basically.
We drink a little bit. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll drink really basically anything you bring to me as long as it's alcoholic and not moonshine.
Mm-hmm. Now, with that being said, just as a reminder, Overwatch League Network is having its 100th episode on October 14th. Now, we do have some stuff planned for this show, but we are basically looking for community members to send in some of their favorite moments from that podcast from the past 100 episodes, either on Twitter using the hashtag OWLNmoments, or there's also a text channel in our Discord where you can post them as well. So we're going to share those on the show, but that will be a week from Monday. So we hope to see you guys out there, and I'm looking forward to that one. But with that being said, guys, that will do it for us here tonight on Heroes Never Die. This has been episode 180.
Bum, bum, bum.
And we'll see if we can turn things around quicker than the Florida Mayhem. Although I think we're doing pretty good on our front.
Yes.
Much better track record, all of that good stuff. But we will see you back on Monday. Take care, enjoy your weekend, and have a good
one.
night.